Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with the airline industry, and specific with turnaround of an airplane, we like to compare it with the pit stop of a Formula 1 racing car. Car comes in, crew is ready and prepared, and within just a few seconds the car leaves fully fueled and with new tires. So the turnaround of a plane should look like that, but unfortunately the truth is a bit different. Plane comes in somewhere on the airport, passengers and luggage get off, and then the turnaround process should start. But what you see then is that the crew is dedicated to make it happen, but they are not dedicated. They're not working as one team because of different companies, and they're not dedicated to one plane instead of Formula 1. So their planning comes in, and how can we make a turnaround for customers quick, first time right, and efficient and full and in control of the full process? Today I would like to take you with me into one of these turnaround crews, KLM Catering Services. And after my presentation I hope you have a picture about the way the Quintig solution supports our operation. So welcome to KLM Catering Services. KLM Catering Services, further on in the presentation I shall call it KCS, so then you know at least what company it is. We are a full subsidiary of KLM, and we operate from Schiphol Airport, where we deliver catering for all the planes come in and leave Schiphol again. We're one of the 5 largest caterers in Europe, and in Schiphol we are by far the biggest. Our customers are of course KLM. We cater also some KLM partner airlines. We serve about 350 flights a day with around 50,000 meals. And we supply all the stuff an airline crew needs to create an excellent experience on board of the flight. So, of course, it's food, but all the other things you need during the flight. The environment we operate in, the Apron, is very complex. There are a lot of variables which influence the way we operate, like the amount of parties around the plane, the weather conditions, the narrow space on the apron, etc. So this demands a high flexibility and a solution which supports that. Zooming in on the Apron operation, KLM Catering Services operates with around 76 high-loaded trucks and around 100 drivers. We have an early shift, a late shift, and a very small night shift. All the activities involved in the turnaround of a plane is split in jobs, and I come to that later on in my presentation. So the 350 flights you can compare it with the equivalent of around 800 jobs, and that's the workload we have to schedule during the day. So working in this environment, KCS needed a solution to cover scheduling and the dispatch and control and of the drivers and trucks during the day of operation. Additionally, we needed a long-term capacity planning module to calculate the number of resources we needed per role based on the flight season timetable. So in this complex environment, 2 questions have to be answered. A strategic one, how many trucks and drivers do we need during a year, during a period? And an operational one, how do we operate, how do we run the day of operation? The Quintig software and the implementation partner Ab Ovo helped us to give the answers to these questions and the questions we popped up along the way. So, I mentioned before, we schedule the workloads of the drivers and jobs. So the translation from flight information into jobs, what does it mean? How does it work? When we look to the flight schedule proposition, we make a distinction in how long a plane stays on the airport. There are a group of planes who come in and stay for a longer period, and there are a group of planes who stay and want to make a short turn and leave as soon as possible again. When we zoom in on the first group, we can split up the work in two big chunks. We have the unloading and the loading. And when we look at the unloading, the two blocks can be split up in the different activities: in driving to the plane, positioning at the plane, getting the used catering off board of the plane, and drive back to the catering facility to pick up a new load. Then a reverse process starts. The truck is loaded with fresh catering, drives to the airplane, takes its position on the galley, and the galley is loaded with fresh catering. This can be done in one or two flows. For instance, in second one, if we have a middle and front, we dock 2 times on the plane. And after the loading, after the loading, the driver-truck combination is available for the next job. It can go or back to the catering facility to pick up a new catering load, or it can drive to another plane and unload the used catering. Then the process of the short turnaround. The activities like driving and positioning to the plane are comparable, but the big difference between this process is that with a short turnaround, the driver first unloads the used catering and loads the fresh catering in one flow. Another difference between these two processes is that with a short turnaround, there are 2 to 3 flight loads of catering on board, so the driver doesn't have to go back to the catering facility to switch between the planes. All these single activities we call jobs. During the day, the actual situation differs from the planning. For example, plane comes in later, the scheduled plane got another destination and also a different catering load. The plane is not on the scheduled position, but is stowed elsewhere, etc. The distribution planning is actualized with this actualized data. All the drivers own handhelds, whereto the jobs are pushed, actualized with the actual status and time, and the driver uses the handheld to update the status of the job and log the delay reasons. The distribution planning we use is called CARE. In this sheet you see some major inputs and outputs. Now one of them is another Quintig solution. It's called Quintig Manpower Planning, QMPP. And QMPP gives a daily update of the available number of drivers and their competencies. It's actualized by the leave of absence for illness, training or holiday leave on a daily basis. And this calculates together to the shift schedule. On the demand side, we start with a flight schedule. That is offered from an application from the airport called Verda. This supplies the actual flight intel, like the plane registration, the actual arrival and departure, but also where the plane is parked. That's important for the driving time. This flight data is automatically converted into jobs within the Quintig application. Then, within the Quintig application, the shift scheduling and the flight jobs are combined in a schedule for the day of operation, which driver-truck combination is handling which job. From here, the dispatch and control present the jobs to the drivers via handhelds, which we call the wing communication application. Then there's the planner from the turnaround process from KLM. This is the one who is in charge of all the turnaround activities around the plane. Gets an update from the chip application, or from the Quintig application in chip in their own system. So in the next sheets, I'll show you some screenshots about the CARE application. I explained that the workload is defined as the number of jobs that has to be finished at a certain point in time. In order to check whether enough resources are available to cover the workload, charts are used to visualize resource utilization during the day. Charts are available for different resource types and aggregation levels like driver, trucks, loaders, and distribution overall. The challenge is of the planners is to spread the workload to fit the resource capacity, and the allowed catering window is used to shift jobs for the desired time. So here you see the planning, and here you see the resources, available resources, and the workload. And the planners have to move the work to an earlier date so that everything is spread out. The input we use are fly jobs, employee shifts and trucks. The output we have is a resource utilization chart and visualizations which support the decision making. This functionality is both used for long-term planning as for the day of operation. Coming to the main planning overview, this one is used for assigning fly jobs to the employee shifts, the drivers. It consists of a list of fly jobs, you see it over here, and a Gantt chart with available resources. The jobs are dragged from the list and dropped into the shifts. Typically, the list is sorted on the earliest possible start, and the Gantt chart is sorted on the earliest available employee. Filters can be used to narrow the planning scope. In addition to fly jobs, the driving jobs and breaks are also planned. And in order to create a round trip with multiple jobs, what I explained about the short turnarounds, the to the next job function is available for the planners. And this will reduce the driving time. The input we use are flight jobs and employee shifts, and the output we have are scheduled employee tasks. Some highlights on this screenshot. You see some visual alerts in case of planning conflicts, like here the red ones. And we can make an alternative planning for our scenario planning, so to try to make a better planning. From the main planning overview, we move to the drivers. They use handhelds for communication with care and the planners. The planner can send a job to the driver in order to inform him about his next task, and the handheld will provide care about the status updates for each job in the process. The planning is updated automatically based on this information, and if needed, the driver can also report disturbances with a reason for the delay. The process of sending jobs to the handhelds can also be managed by care automatically, and if a driver finishes his job, care will automatically send him his next job. Next to updates from the handhelds, flight updates and actuals are imported continuously to keep schedule up to date. The input we use here are the scheduled flight employee tasks, the task updates, flight updates and disturbances, and the output we have are ended jobs. So the first implementation we had was in 2002. We moved from the paper plan board to a system that automatically generated the jobs from the fly data. With a computerized Gantt chart, we created a visual overview, and the planners manually dropped and dragged the jobs, but the system gives a lot of visual clues to support the decision making. However, the dispatch to the drivers was still on paper. In 2004, we moved to mobile communication from the planners to the system by handheld computers. That was the moment that we had a real-time information about our distribution process, and the data we collected we could use to optimize the turnaround for our customers. During the years, small updates were made, like new customers, new processes, new airplane types. And by 2080, so this year, we upgraded the mobile communication by GPS. So now it makes it possible that the jobs can be followed automatically. And the update for Quintig 5.5 is scheduled for later on this year. So are we happy with it? KCS did not have a choice in 2002. There was a big need for digitizing support of the operation. We had a business case, what worked out quite nicely. What you see here is that we had an increase in efficiency for our planners The capacity, the same capacity, we can handle 18% more flights during a day, and even 38% more jobs. So there was a big increase. We also see an efficiency for the drivers. The average jobs of the driver handles almost doubled over the years, and that equals a productivity increase of 3% year over year. Also on the performance side, we saw a big improvement. On a regular day, that's a day with more or less a normal process, no big disruptions. We see that our punctuality improved from 98% to 99.7%. On days with exceptions, like a disrupted flight schedule, we see that we have a controlled, stable, and more predictable process. Also, the availability of data is an extra USP. Our distribution process became fully transparent. And on the other hand, it's also a source for management information and a base for our continuous improvement. So why did KCS choose Quintig for a solution and Ab Ovo as an implementation partner? In 2002, we knew what we wanted, but then there was the big how. In our search, we found out that the Quintig application solution was flexible, and we believed that it would evolve with the KCS business, both on complexity as on volume. And it turned out to be true. Another reason we chose Quintig was that small adjustments could be realized by the KCS team. For instance, adding new processes we could do by ourselves. For the solution, there was the solution, but then we needed an implementation partner. Which one will fit? We searched for a couple of competences. Someone who understands the business we're in. Of course, has an in-depth knowledge of the Quintig functionality. And a partner who is able to challenge you, and on the other side is a good gatekeeper on the requirements, because everyone is enthusiastic, but you have to stick to the plan. And last but not least, trust is crucial, and we found all this within Ab Ovo. We managed this implementation in 6 months. What helped was, of course, the good implementation partner. And back in 2002, we never heard of Scrum Agile, but looking into retrospective, we worked by the book. For care, we formed a small but dedicated team. We worked as much in-house as possible, so we could arrange short feedback loops with the future users of the software. And we, or Ab Ovo by that means, stayed focused on the minimum requirements. Okay, so then I already come to the end of my presentation, and I've got a small wrap-up for you. There was a great need for an automatic planning solution. Quintig proved to do its job with a user-friendly application. Ab Ovo made it happen. Functionality within budget and time. And it turned out to be a real good business case, both on finance as on quality. And the availability of data gives us a transparent process, reports for management, and the base for our continuous improvement. So, I say thank you, and I really would like to answer your questions.
Do your drivers report when they start and finish jobs to the mobile device?
Sorry?
Do your drivers report to the mobile device when they start and finish jobs?
Or the drivers can do that, but now with the GPS, as soon as they leave the plane, the system knows that the driver finishes his job. But in the past, before this optimization, when the driver starts the job, he put it in the handheld. When he ended the job, he put it in the handheld. When there was a disturbance, he put it in the handheld. And all the data we collected, we could use to inform our customers about their process, but also we could use it for our continuous improvement.
How difficult was that to implement with your drivers? Or easy?
Now it was a thing in the beginning. To put it mildly. Now what we saw, we never used it to slap. We only used it to say, okay, something happening, and this was the process of your colleague, and this is what's happening with your process, so how does it come? And when you are very open and transparent on that too, then after a certain moment in time, they are okay with it. And they implementing the GPS, so even they cannot hassle that anymore, no problem at all.
So start with the GPS, I guess.
Yeah, our Amarillo agents wouldn't like that.
Yeah, okay.
It's one of these old things.
I have a question. You said your planners are assigning the tasks to the
Yeah.
employees. Any thoughts in the future of allowing the system to do that?
That's a very good point. And within the company, we're not on the same page on that. That's not the reason I left the company, but I think there is a possibility that the system can make a suggestion, and that does it already. But the planners, they are quite convinced that it has to be done, and also their team leaders, that it has to be done by a planner. But I think we are going to do some pilots on that too, and then we see what happens. But I don't think that this system can run without any planner, so that you get everything so in place, because with this it's gone. It's what someone this morning said. It's the system does the calculating, and the operator uses his brain. So I think we can manage more, even in productivity then, but it's not a full replacement. I don't think so. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.